Hi, I'm Lynn Keddy and I'm an expressive painter. And in this video, I'm going to show you one of the ways that you can use to simplify your work so that you can paint more expressively. Now, there's an interesting addition to this video, and that is the first half of it is painted on one day where I paint the painting and I think it's going well, but then it starts to fall apart. You've been there, you know what it's like. What do you do when it falls apart? Well, you stop and you leave it and you digest it over a couple of days and come back to it. Don't throw it away because you've got the gem of a painting there. You just need to sort it out. I come back to this painting a couple of days later and I can see where it's gone wrong and I work on resolving it. And I think it's a really interesting way of showing you what to do when your painting does go wrong and how you resolve it. So do watch to the end. I think it's worth it. It's quite easy to do and it's very effective. I'm using a photograph of mine, but you can do this outside on plein air, outside, painting outside, just as well. The idea is to use the rule of thirds because that's quite a useful method for composing your painting, which I'll explain. And you then simplify your view, the painting you're going to paint, and only use a few number of lines to draw out the key elements of the painting. I've used 5 lines in this painting and I'm going to explain to you how they work in terms of shape and composition. So let's get painting. Let me lightly draw in these lines that I was telling you about, the rule of thirds, very lightly. So these are the sweet spots here. So I'm going to draw my first line of the horizon of this image here. So I'm choosing, this is a key shape, this is a key shape, the sky, the horizon. Then I've got a tree, which is about here, and I'm just going to draw it in that roughly. That's another line, so that's 2. Then I'm going to draw in some key clouds, and in this case I'm going to draw in this one here, which sort of comes in like that. That's the 3rd line. The 4th line is a really interesting cloud here, which also leads to that tree, so I'm just going to draw that in. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the 5th one leads to this tree here, which I'm not going to draw in, but I am going to draw in the shadow, which is roughly like that. And there I have it, a really, really simple template, if you like, that I can start painting on. So I'm just going to start off damping my brush, drying it off a little bit, and then I think I'm going to start with the sky. So I'm going to mix up a little bit of the ultramarine, the titanium. It's quite a dark sky, but I am going to pop a little bit of raw umber in just to knock that back a bit. I'm going to make this paint a little bit wetter, and I'm just going to put in the background. I think that needs to be lighter. I'm going to mix that in straight away. As you can see, all very rough. I do work quickly, and that works with expressive work, is to work quickly. And I'm holding the brush right at the end. I'm not holding it like a pencil. I'm holding it right at the end. So that's a very quick bit of painting, getting that in. I'm going to cover up that green that was already there and mix up a little bit more paint. I'm being quite rough, so I'm not getting exactly the same colour. It might not be quite the same blue, for example, but I'm getting that paper covered. Mix it up on the paper a bit. Okay, so the paint's quite not very thick, but I've got some sky in. Now I'm going to get a bit of these clouds in, which are quite interesting, but I'm just going to do it really, really roughly for now. There's the clouds that are causing the lines, the leading lines, are actually quite dark. They're quite dark in colour, so I'm mixing blue and brown. I'm going to try adding a little bit of red to that. to hopefully get a kind of a purpley colour. Is that working? Don't know if that's purpley enough. Might have got too much brown in there actually. Let's just try. So it's all very experimental at this stage. So let's put in that cloud. It's very dark, and I'm going to put that in there as well. Okay, that's just putting in some of those clouds very, very roughly. Mixing in a bit of white. That was quite a nice mark that I just made and painted over it. I always say make a mark and leave it, and I'm not doing that. But already we have got some interesting marks going on here. Now, the whole point about painting the blue in was that it's very difficult to paint round shapes that you've already painted. So I start off with the first layer, which is the blue, and then I progress to the grey, which is the some of the clouds. And I notice on the horizon it's quite light, so I'm going to put a very light sort of bluey colour. That's not light enough, is it? This brush is quite grey. It's got quite a lot of grey on. I probably should have used a different brush, but I'm just going to paint that in just like that. So I'm just glancing at the picture. I'm not concentrating on it too much. It doesn't matter if it's not an exact copy, but it has got quite a lot of lightness in the horizon, so I really want to get that in. So I'm getting a clean brush now. I'm going to put the tiniest bit of yellow in. If you mix, you've got to be really careful when you start introducing yellow, because if you get blue in it, you've got green straight away. So that's going to be very clean, and it's almost white, and I'm just going to get that in now. Could even be whiter. Because the paint's still wet on the paper, it is mixing in with the paint that's already there. But I'm just going to put that in there. We could go whiter than that, you know. Let's go in with some white. I'm going to take my palette knife, if I can find it. Oops. And I'm just going to, this palette knife, I'm just going to scrape across here, because that will get rid of some of the marks that I've got that just don't look particularly good actually. And I'm going to use it up here as well, because if you use it very flat, you can get some lovely interesting marks that you've sort of got in the original photograph. So I'm just going to use that a little bit. And already it's starting to look quite interesting, isn't it? So I want to put in this shape here, which is this quite vibrant yellow. Has it got any green in it? I think so. Well, I'm going to put some brown in that actually. See what that gives us. That will give us a sort of a, I'll knock that back so it's more olivey. And now I'm going to put some red in to make it more orange. See if that works. That might be too much. Let's see. No, I think that might work, you know. Might maybe touch more yellow. No, I haven't put any white in that. I don't want to tint it because it's actually quite a rich colour we've got going on here. I'm going to put it in with my palette knife just to be really rough, okay? So that hasn't covered the paper, and I've actually got to now start making lots more of this because I didn't mix up enough. But that doesn't matter. If you don't mix up enough and you mix up a slightly different colour, it just makes the painting look more interesting anyway. So I've mixed that up again. I've mixed up some more, and I'm going to put some more in here. It's almost the same. Let's put some more yellow in to make it a bit different. There we go. And also there's some darker tones. So just at this little bit at the corner here, I'm going to mix up some more darker tones, and that is with the brown. Actually, it's really quite orange though, looking at it. So I'm going to get some more red in and see what that does. There we go. So let's put that in there. So you can see already very, very loose. Very loose. And let's get some over here. The other side. So you can see these leading lines straight away. I've got the one going in towards the one tree, which is going to be here. And then I've got this going into the other tree, which is going to be there. Okay.
Now I need some green to, I'm going to lose my yellow here on time, green, so that's going to be mixing that. Now it's a very muddy green, so I'm going to get some more raw umber. There's some more raw umber, mix that in. Now the other thing that you can think about when you're painting like this is you don't actually have to follow the colours that you see. You could make up your own colours. These could be completely different colours. I'm just doing these just to show you how I would approach this sort of painting. I'm going to put some more brown in that, more green in that, but I'm not mixing them up very much. That's the key. I don't want to mix them up very much. So that's more blue in there. So I've got a very dark colour going on here, and there are some shadows, so I'm going to let that drift in there and then add some more yellow. I always advise people to put plenty of colour on their palette, and what have I done? Not that. All right, here we go. That's a bit too bright. Let's get some brown in. That's still quite bright. Let's see what happens if I put more blue in. I'm going to mix it up in that grey and see what that does. I could put black in to desaturate it because it is quite a desaturated colour, but I don't really want to use black, so I'm not going to. There you go. Let's put that in and see what that does. Whoops. Okay, so I'm leaving it like that. There's lots of bits that aren't filled in, but I'm just going to leave it like that for now. And I'm going to get in some of these trees in the background, which are just on the horizon. And that I'm just making really, really rough marks. Like this. Letting some light come through underneath, as though you could see the horizon in the distance. I'm lightening it with a tiny bit of white just to add some more interest. And here. Okay, so very, very loose. Very loose indeed. Now this part here is not quite working for me, so I'm going to get some of this Naples yellow. I haven't used Naples yellow in ages, but I saw it and I thought, I fancy that. It must be the time of year. So I'm going to put that in there and drift it through there and drift it through here. Like that. That's a lovely colour. Love that colour. So we've got the feeling of trees there. We've got this funny little tree in the middle. I'm not sure whether to do much with that, but I'm just going to make a mark like that. And then I'm going to tackle the tree that's here. Now I may need to get rid of, I love that mark there though. I may have to let that have to go unless I make my tree bigger. So what I'm going to do to tackle that is I've got a rigger brush and I'm going to see if this works. I don't know if it's let's see. I just want to have, I might make it actually bigger as well. I just want to, that might not be thin enough and that might not be dark enough. I'm going to make this purple, so I'm going to mix a bit of red with the blue to make a nice deep purple. Make it a little bit more watery, and then I'm going to have another go with this tree. I want to sort of make it feel as though it needs to be quite dark so I can actually distinguish the difference between that and the background, but I can't at the moment because it's too wet and it's mixing in. So I'm just going to stop there and let the whole thing dry. I've been looking at it and I think I've got to get rid of that green there because that's kind of making it all not work. So it's not actually dry. So I'm just going to scrape it off like that. Scrape some of that off. because the blue underneath is sort of dry, but the green wasn't. So I'm just going to paint in some blue there, very roughly, and paint in some lighter background here. So I've just mended that bit of painting that just wasn't quite working. There's a bit of blue in there, but I don't particularly mind that actually. And I am going to get rid of the bit of tree that I did do with a bit of cloud. I'm going to get some, I've drifted back to the clouds again, and I'm going to get some more purple into that. I've got green on my palette knife, which is not good, but I'm just going to sort of ignore that for now. Take that out with that. And similarly over here, that's very grey and it needs to be a little bit more purple, I think, so I'm going to mix up some purple. It's like a very deep violet actually in this case, but rather lovely. Let's put it up here. Yeah, that's really brought that alive. It is a lot darker than you can see in the photograph, but I love that. That's too red. It's far too red. Let's just mix it there. I'm going to put a bit of white in here. Let's mix that there. And I'm going to add it into here. So I've sort of gone back to the sky, but I love that. So that's the beautiful thing about doing these sorts of paintings, that you can just go all over the place. Isn't that lovely? I think that's great. And then up here, let's get some more in. And down here, let's get some white, more white back in. So you can see all these marks are so loose. They're not thought through terribly. Well, I guess I am thinking through it. I'm talking to you and thinking through it. But they're just marks that don't really mean anything. You know, that isn't a tree. That's just a mark. It's not a cloud. But if your brain just works it out, and I think that's the wonderful thing about it. Okay. So let's tackle these tricky trees again, shall we? I'm going to use my rigger brush again. Got to watch that doesn't dry out because it's so thin. It could easily dry out. I want to get more blue. Here we go. And some red. And I want to get that really dark colour there. And that's going to be my tree, I hope. Let's get some more water on there. Let's see how this works. So I'm just doing some kind of rough lines. The white is still, the paint is still wet, so I've got white in it now. So I'm too impatient, aren't I? I should just leave it, and then it would work. But yeah, I'm too impatient. Let's see if we can draw in something that is like that tree. I don't know if this is working. How are we going to make this work? Let's get in its trunk, which is not that colour in real life. And then that's starting to work a bit better, isn't it? The thing is not to overwork it, because if you overwork it, it just disappears. So I'm just being kind of, I did this one painting, I just remembered it actually, where I had a tree in the distance and I just did squiggly lines all the way around. It actually looked really good. It looked like a very angry tree. Maybe I should try that here. But I've started, so I'll finish. While I'm there, I'm just going to draw in some lines here to give the impression of trunks and get some dark in there. Just some dark marks, just to. And I think because I like that colour so much, I think I'd quite like to put some of it in the foreground. You know, let's see what that does. This is when you have to experiment, and you have to be really brave, and you just have to think, okay, this might get ruined by doing this. You know, might ruin It's turning out to be an interesting painting. But on the other hand, I might make something really exciting. And actually, I really do like that colour, even though it's not actually in the photograph at all. Love it. So it's going in. And I'm going to put it in here. Again, don't go over your marks too many times because you will ruin them. That is great colour. That's cadmium red medium and ultramarine blue. Lovely. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Lovely. Get rid of that. It's too obvious, that line. And I've still got sort of a lot of white in there, which I may... How am I going to resolve that? Not sure. But I want a dark colour in here. I want something here for this little thicket going on. So that's going to go in there. And then let's go back over. As this dries, it will work. I just wish I wasn't so impatient. Let's see. It's starting to. Let's have a bit going up here. And here. Here. And there is a great big shadow of this that this tree actually has. So let's put that in, mixing some of that purple in with that colour there. How am I going to get that in? Let's just do it really quite rough. Very rough. It's not even particularly good, actually. Let's try again. There we go. And this one has a sort of a shadow here, so I'll just put that in there. Might leave that in there. I'm going to get some more of that colour. I'm going to have to move this bit in here. Okay, let's have a think about this. I'm going to take a photograph and see how I'm feeling about it. To get that obvious squared off line out of the way, put that back in there somewhere. And I think I might very roughly, it's gone quite light, very roughly draw in with my brush to get rid of some of that white. So that's quite watery, mauvey coloured paint. Just want to just get rid of some of that. Not all of it, because you could imagine that that was a watery field. Also, I love that lavender colour with the yellow. And why do I love that? Because they're complementaries. They're very not in your face, just very beautiful colours. You know, what I was saying, I have said this a few times, start like a builder, finish like a jeweller. Kind of this painting sort of rushed along, actually. I wasn't expecting to get this to this stage, but I love the colour palette. I think it's so simple. You know, I haven't gone for broke with millions of colours, because the minute you do that, you get really confused with what you've got on your palette, and you don't know what's going on really. Not so sure about these trees though. I don't think they're really working. Quite like these ones. Quite like what's going on here. I do like the sky. I love that purple colour I've got going through there. It's just those trees that I'm not sure terribly quite right. So I'm gonna get put some background into it again. So that's going to be quite a white colour. We could do with some more white. Let's use up some of this. And then same with that chap. Probably stop messing around and get some white out. So tiny bit of blue, a little bit of the grey colour. I think that'd be perfect. That's a bit too blue. Just bring that horizon back in. Not too neatly. Oops. Right. And I'm going to lighten up this here very, very roughly. So that's given me a better base, if you like. I'm going to try and let that dry. Actually, what I might do is just, again, see what happens if I, I think I might do it with a pencil. Let's see what happens if I do it with a pencil. So there's again, not holding the pencil like a pencil, just holding it like a tool. So that's the sort of idea, but it's not really. And similarly here. That's what I want to get, but it needs to be darker. So the pencil didn't work. Okay. I'm going to have to let it dry because I'm just going to end up in the same predicament that I was before. So let's let it dry. Okay, I've left it about an hour and it's pretty dry. There's a few wet patches where the paint's really quite thick, but that's okay. I think I'm in a much better position now to try and draw these trees in. I'm not sure if this is going to work, but let's give it a go. So I'm getting my rigger brush loaded with paint again. It's the cadmium red mixed with the ultramarine blue, and it's quite a dark colour. I'm holding it right at the end, like this, and painting it very loosely, squiggly marks really. It's difficult to see because I can't show you with this camera angle, but you can just about see the marks that I'm making. And the idea is to represent the trees as they look at this time of year. Is it working? I'm not sure if it is really, but we'll persevere. We'll persevere. Just mixing up some more paint. I want it to be quite dark, but I'm actually mixing it with the wrong. I've got some white in it, so now it's getting lighter. So it's a lighter grey. So I've got to get some more blue in, and just it's getting a bit annoying. I think how many times have I tried to paint these? Okay, so is that working? Oh gosh, not sure about that at all, to be honest. But it's an experiment, and honestly, you don't learn anything if you don't experiment. So I'm trying a different brush. This is slightly thinner, and actually, that is. I quite like the marks that it's making at any rate. Is it working? I'm not sure. At the moment, the trees look like two angry clouds in the distance. But yeah, you've got to try these things out. And as you've already seen, we can paint over this and start again. It is getting a little bit frustrating. I'm also wondering if compositionally these two trees side by side just don't look quite right together, and it might be better if I lost one of them, but I'll have to make a decision about that a bit later, I think. I'm now wondering if I need to have some more of the dark ochre colour in the trees. Um, and at this point, it's always great to start developing layers. So more layers make more interest. Sometimes they can make a complete mess, which may be the case in this painting. Let's see. Let's see how it evolves. I think, I think my trees might have been better in phase one. I'm not sure. Right, I'm going to paint these trunks back in. Gosh, I'm doing it with a rigger brush. I'm not sure if that's the right thing to do. I think they need to be darker. I'm continuing painting with this, but sometimes I think when you get to this stage of painting, it's a really good idea to stop and probably leave it for about 24 hours and look at it with fresh eyes. I'm just at this point in my head, I'm determined to get these trees right. And I think this is sometimes quite a dangerous place to be, because that's when you really start to mess things up. So let's have a think. So I've had to think about this, and I'm going to just go back in with my palette knife and sort out these trunks, because they look a bit pathetic, actually. I'm pretty sure that tree wouldn't stand up with the trunk that I drew in. So yeah, let's darken those down, sort that out a little bit. And I'm wondering if I should just need to paint in the trees with a palette knife with some just very simple marks. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's kind of what I do with quite a lot of trees, but I just wonder if it's a bit of a cop out. You know, it was quite interesting the way that they were developing before. I'm not sure if the green's right either. Yeah, I'm going to get some dark colours into that. And I really like that purple. So that purple's going to come back again, this time in the tree. So to get some darks in, which will bring it to life. And just a few marks. And, well, I kind of guess they look more like trees, but, do you know, I'm just not sure about them. I'm not sure if that really works. I'm just using a brush because I'm going to make this very, very, very rough. And this is starting to tip over, because I don't want to lose everything that I've done. And I want to get the effect of the clouds. So this is quite a dry brush now I'm using. You can hear it, it's quite dry. And I'm just pushing some more blue into that sky, because it is quite a blue sky. a grey blue. That's rather lovely. And I'm using the flat of this brush just to get that deepness. I think that's working better, you know. Still not 100% with those trees. And I'm wondering if this might be just a bit too messy. I think what I need to do now, which is a really good idea in your painting practice always, is to just leave it, photograph it, and come back to it later. Needless to say, I just thought I've just got to get a little bit more dark into those trees for some reason. I don't know why. I just feel they need a little bit more dark. Maybe they need a little bit more light. I don't know. Let's try putting in a much lighter, because there is a lot of Naples yellow in the colour of the trees, because they are autumnal trees and I've got loads of green in them, so it doesn't make any sense. So let's get some, again, very rough marks. Don't want to lose that colour. Those don't look like trees at all now. Well, maybe they do. Maybe they do. Running some pencil through it. I don't know if that's the right thing to do or not. Let's leave it. Let's leave it, because I am probably going to ruin it. And it's kind of working. I think if I come back to it, I may be able to make it work a bit better. I've just got this green in those trees is just wrong, and I've got to, it's just now slightly doing my head in. Yeah, they're going to be very, very thick, dense trees, I think, soon. Okay, let's leave it. Let's photograph it and leave it and let it dry and see what we feel about it. It's been a couple of days now since I left this. I wasn't sure how it was going, and I've come back to it with fresh eyes. That's what I would recommend. If you are feeling a little bit like your painting's getting out of control and you're overworking it and all the rest of it, leave it, photograph it, and come back to it in a couple of days. I've done that. And there's lots of things I'm not happy with about this painting. I was loving it whilst I was painting it. But I just think the foreground looks messy and the sky is very bold, but I kind of think I might leave that. And these trees don't work at all. And I think one of the reasons why they don't work at all is because that one shouldn't be here, because it's just too symmetrical and it just isn't very exciting. So I'm going to go back in. I've got my paint from the other day. I'm just showing it to you because I covered it over with another palette, and it's still usable, but it's a bit of a messy palette, so I'm going to tidy that up. So I've salvaged some of the colours from before, and looking back at the original photograph, I don't want it to look like the original photograph, but I do want it to look exciting, I guess. And although this kind of looks exciting, I think it looks a bit overexciting. It's overexcited. The painting's overexcited because there's just too much going on and you cannot focus. So I'm going to take some of that yellow. I think I need to get some red in there. Right. So I've got some red. I don't know if that's right. That's not right. We need a darker yellow, I think. What shall I use? Let's use raw umber, one of my favourites. I don't want it to be pinky, that's a bit peach, and I don't want it to be peach. But let's get going. I'm just going to start painting and see where it takes us. scraping back some of this to I think what I'll do is I'll get some gloss fluid medium. I'm going to apply some of that over, so it's going to thin it down, and in places it's just going to cover up what I've done a little bit. Now, another little trick that I sometimes use is to get some paper, this is baking paper, and lay it down of what I just painted, lift it up, and you get some really interesting marks, textures, and it also removes some of the paint. So you see some of the paint underneath. I'm going to take some more off. You could do this with fabric as well. Works with fabric. Let's try it with a bit of, have I got any fabric? Not really. I'll show you with kitchen roll. Trouble is it's got little dimples in it, so we'll get dimples, which we don't really want, but it just shows you how it just lifts the colour off, and that just softens it a bit. I'm going to take out the tree, so I need to put any white on my palette. Okay, so I'm going to have a bit of grey in that. Don't want it too dark, and take out that tree. Might need to use a brush because it's actually quite a lot of texture there now. But it's completely dry, so it's so much easier to do that. Okay, I'm going to put some of that in here. Not sure about that. Let's get some of that vegetation back in to the background. Nice olivey green colour going in there, make that darker. A bit of blue. Get that back in. Let's put some, nice thing about the texture is that you can get some quite lovely marks for your trees. I want to get a much darker colour coming in as well. Have that, we need a brush. Have that coming in here. That. And then let's see what we can do with this thing. This annoying tree. Right, it has got texture in it now, so I'm just lightly drawing over that. Kind of looks a bit more like a tree now, doesn't it? I want this to be lighter. Don't usually mix white in too much to grassy colours. I think that's too green. That's far too green. Let's get some. What happens if I do that? Might make it too orange. Don't think I've quite got the right red there. So no, it's far too orange. Let's try that. Can you see that? I don't know if it's too. Yeah, you can. So I've just dipped my palette knife in the orange again. Marvellous. See what that looks like. And I think what I'd like to do is have now I've got green. Oh. Is to have the green again. anytime you have blue, yellow, the tiniest bit of yellow, you end up with green. There we go. I like to be able to see the sky here. I think that's going to help enormously. Oops, that's okay, that could be things in the distance, couldn't it? So I think that works, doesn't it? I'm going to make that lighter. Get rid of that. Okay. So straight away, that has really helped. Let's make that tree a tiny bit bigger, and let's have it. Need it to be properly rooted to the ground. So let's give it a decent trunk. Slightly gone crazy over that. Let's give it some vegetation around about. Right. Okay, know when to stop. I think I should stop now. I think it's looking pretty good. It's got some good leading lines in towards the tree. This was the before, where it was really messy, as you can see. So even when things are not really working out, it's good to leave your painting. You see it with fresh eyes when you come back to it, and be really bold about the changes that you make. Analyse which bits are working and which bits aren't. And it's really worth it. You get more layers in your painting. It becomes more nuanced. That's a good word. I just think this is working so much better. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.